Welcome back to Death Before Booze. I'm Sam.
I'm Jen.
Woo, woo, hey Jen. Hey Jen. It's day.
Hey,
It's Tuesday.
Sam.
We're recording. Well, no, it's Sunday we're recording. But it's Tuesday and you're listening.
it's fine.
It's Death Before Booze Day. Woo. All right, that was fun. We are still in the Midwest. I did not prepare any special things for the Midwest because I did that last week. So go listen to that episode. Anything we need to talk about? Anything you got to get off your chest this week?
No, I think we're all good. I think we can
Yo,
we can go with the stories.
Shit's popping off over. I don't know. We weren't supposed to curse in the first minute. I already fucked that up. Shit's popping off on YouTube, guys. We got some awesome videos over there. We definitely have our Midwest Part 1. Our whole road trip's over there. But Midwest Part 1, you guys are absolutely loving over there. So thank you so much for going to YouTube and finding us and, watching our videos. I mean, it's a little hard to find us, I know, but really love that you guys make the effort and we really appreciate it. So that's all I wanted to say. Otherwise, we are still in the Midwest. We're on part 2, day 2, week 2 of hanging out there. Jen, you go first. Tell me a story.
I do. So, we're in Kansas today.
There's no place like home. There's no place like home.
This case has murder, has abusive relationships, has some grooming involved. So it's a shit show.
Trigger warning.
Yeah.
Trigger warning. Abusive shit.
So
yeah. Hate those motherfuckers.
Yeah. So we're going to start with Harold Sasko, known as Hal. So I'll refer to him as Hal the rest of the time. He was a Florida native and the 10th of 12 kids. So there it is.
Oh, Jen. There's the old Jen back. I missed her. I missed her ruining people's vaginas. Thank you so much for coming back to us.
Bringing the shit ton of kids in there. He went to college. He worked at corporate headquarters of a pizza chain in Texas known as Cece's Pizza.
There used to be a Cece's Pizza. Didn't you have to pay $5 and you had as much pizza as you could eat? I feel like I remember that.
In the 90s, Hal moved to Kansas with his family and he ended up owning 3 Cece's Pizza chains.
That's exciting.
Awesome. Somewhere along the line, Hal began living alone, so I guess stuff didn't go well with his wife and child. So he lived alone in Lawrence, Kansas.
Okay, I've heard of that place.
He had a reputation of telling his managers to only hire young, attractive girls. So...
So it's Abercrombie? Hollister?
Right. That's what I thought.
Isn't good looking so subjective? Some people think dumpster fires are really fucking cool.
Hot Mess Express? I mean...
Yo! We should start a restaurant called Hot Mess Express.
Hot Mess Express.
Yeah. We'll bring back the Pizza Hut buffet. And it'll just... Oh my god, I have so many ideas. It'll look like... Remember how TGI Fridays used to look with all the just shit hanging on the walls? And there was just always a pile of dust on it? We're bringing it back. TM, don't take it. That's my idea.
Yeah.
Write it down.
I love that.
Mine.
He was also known to his staff for being very kind, very helpful. Just he was the person that you would go to talk to and he would listen and he would try to, help people out of, he'd be the first to offer money if they needed help. Okay. Hal ends up hiring Sarah Gonzales-McLinn when she was 14. So we're going to focus on Sarah because she actually is going to be the center of our story. But I had to introduce Hal because there's a lot of controversy between both sides. So Sarah was born July 1994. She had a brother and a sister, and she was homeschooled for a time.
Poor thing.
Then, when she was a preteen, her parents divorced, and her dad kind of sort of didn't stay in touch. Now, there are some sources that say that didn't really go much into this. Others said that he just kind of took off and goodbye.
Okay.
So, as a preteen girl, I can assume that not having that family and being that you're homeschooled, you're already naive to the world.
Yeah. homeschooled systems, like, you know, where there's like
Yeah.
10 or 12 parents and like, you know, a 5 mile radius, and you all have your own prom and you meet up and stuff. You're not with people every day, and you're not really with
Right.
people of different mindsets, because there's a reason all these
Exactly.
kids are being homeschooled, whatever it is, religion or,
Whatever it is.
yeah, I mean,
So, not only did she have to deal with that now, being like, oh crap, my family fell apart, but add being super, super naive to all situations. She was molested by a neighbor.
ew.
So, she was, again, that adds to the trauma pile. So, she started hanging out with the wrong crowd. She started doing drugs. She started getting into alcohol. And this is around like 13 years old. So,
Oh
again, it's
no,
very.
poor thing.
So now she's in school at this point, but still it's a lot. During this time, she began working at Cece's because she just needed, job, get out, whatever. Then she stopped working at the pizza chain, but Hal stayed in touch with her because he knew she was having some issues, like her parents were divorced, whatever. So he always kind of kept in touch with her.
Why? Why? I'm sorry, you're how old? She's like 13, 14. Like, why are we keeping in touch with her?
I understand. It's very
Why?
creepy. At 15, Sarah was raped by
Oh, shit.
an older boy on one of her nights out. So she snuck out of the house. She did the thing. No victim blaming here because nobody deserves that.
No.
He also was that big of an asshole that he burned her with cigarette butts and left some scars. So
What the fuck is wrong with people? What makes you think, what a great idea? Like, why? It's not cute. It doesn't look cute. It's not cute. If
not
you've done this to
cute.
someone, you're a shit human. I'm sorry. Don't care.
it's not cute.
It's not sexy. It's just you wanting to have that
Control.
control over somebody else. It's so terrible. It's terrible. You're a shit human.
Agreed.
Don't eat at my restaurant.
So this is, of course, when her mental health just really collapsed because of everything that was piled up. She attempted to take her own life at one point, but luckily her mom was able to get her to the hospital in time. She did end up having to stay at the hospital for 5 months, making a full recovery, but that makes sense. So she was trying to get her life back on track. She was trying to do all these great things, but she was, of course, diagnosed with PTSD and depression. And she continued to have a really tough time with mom. And it's a matter of, again, dad's not there. Being a teenage girl, you fight with mom. That's what you do. So
That checks.
So this is where Hal comes back into the picture. He's 50. Okay.
Go away.
He offers to help Sarah, to be her life coach and a personal guardian. And he even offers her to stay at his house because he knew she was having problems at home and maybe she needed a change of scenery.
Should have an aunt or a cousin or like mom's best friend or, a neighbor who is not a 50-year-old man.
I'm trying to see it from her perspective.
Does the mom know how?
No.
And
this is why
no.
when she finds out, she's not too happy with this.
No, that's not okay. No.
Sarah thinks, because now all of this stuff happening to her, being that she is a teenager, you're naive to a certain extent, and on top of all of the other stuff that she was going through. So she's thinking this guy has just the best of intentions and he wants to be a father figure towards her, because that's what he has a daughter that he doesn't live with, but he has a daughter. He had a family. He owns all these restaurants and people say he's a great guy. So yeah, I can kind of see her thought process. On the other side, there's this huge red flag coming out.
Yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like him.
So
I don't like it.
She does agree when she's 17, she's going to move in with him into his house as a roommate situation. Now, not surprisingly, again, Sarah's mom is not comfortable with this.
Nope.
So the two of them argue about this, but that the fact that she's arguing with her daughter about this makes it easier for Sarah to leave because she's like, well, my mom, blah, blah, blah. So Sarah started to, again, view Hal as he was being kind to her. He understood because he knew all of the stuff that happened to her. She was very open with him. So she felt there was this connection. She was craving a father type of connection. That this guy was it for her.
I don't like it. Don't like it.
Now,
at
it
all.
started out okay. It started out what was expected. He gave her the room.
I'm sorry. Playing Monopoly with your family always starts off great. By the end, someone's crying and grandma's got all the pink 50s. Like, no. There's always, no. It always starts off great. No. No.
You know what? You're right. You're right. Game night always sounds like a good
What
idea.
a great idea. Can't wait to play Uno until little Johnny's in the corner crying because you hit him with a reverse times 2, times 3, times 4. And then he's crying
Plus
in the
4,
corner.
pick up 4.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like, it never ends well. Has she never watched a Lifetime movie? Like, Lifetime was a thing in 2014. I know. I was obsessed.
I know.
I can't.
Like even soap operas, like you could kind of get, there was a lot of stuff.
And I'm not victim blaming here at all. Like, please don't think I'm doing that. I'm not. Like, whatever happened to this poor girl, she did not deserve in any way, shape, or form.
Because, I see what you're saying, because immediately our thought process is, this isn't okay. But for a girl who's gone through so much, I guess this to her, she thinks
this is a light at the end of the tunnel.
This is someone's going to take care of me because I'm having some trouble with my mom and I need to get my life and my shit together.
It almost would have been better if she walked into it going sugar daddy.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, like, had she been like, yeah, you know what, Ma, we're obviously not getting together. I found a man who wants to take care of me. He's going to be my sugar daddy, and I'll see you next week. Like, I'll come over for dinner. Like, no mom wants to hear that, but at least you would have known she was going into it with a mindset of, this is a reciprocity. Like, something's coming out of this.
Right. Something's coming out of this, as opposed to my 17-year-old daughter is leaving the house to live with this 50-year-old guy, and I don't know what his intentions are.
Yeah.
Because you don't fucking know.
Nope.
So he charged her rent. She got her own food. It was like a roommate situation until it wasn't. So Hal told his neighbors Sarah was his stepdaughter. So he made it very clear to neighbors when she moved in, she's my stepdaughter. I'm taking her in for whatever. But now when Sarah told coworkers, because she no longer works at CC, she works at another place. But when she told her coworkers this, they were like, all right, there's nothing in it for him here. Like, he's just doing this out of the kindness of his heart. She's like, nope, there's nothing sexual. There's nothing, everything's, and they're like, but this kind of reads weird. Even people around her were like, this reads weird.
What were we saying last week? Something smells fishy in Denmark. Isn't that what we were saying? Like,
yeah.
It's just not, it feels icky. I'm getting the ick.
Even if you have good intentions as an older person, it just doesn't.
No.
No.
Sorry. No, I can't get on board.
Hal asked her to call him dad or daddy, which I really don't like that. I really hate that.
I don't remember that being in my lease agreement.
Like, I really
Daddy. Daddy, I'm paying my rent. Daddy. Like, ew, I hate it. I hate everything about it.
Don't like that.
Oh, God, I'm nauseous.
It gives me the heebie-jeebie vibes. And this guy isn't her dad. He's just a stepdad, as he says.
He's her roommate. He's her roommate.
Yeah. And she's like, you can call me dad or daddy.
I will not. I can call you Hal or
I will not
like
be calling
landlord. I will not be calling you daddy. Ew. Ew. Can't.
So Sarah turns 18 and Hal gave her unlimited access to alcohol, marijuana, cocaine, ecstasy. The habits she's been trying to get rid of because of the fact that she fell into a deep hole. And he's just like, here it is, all in the house that she can
Thanks,
just have access
Daddy.
to. So, after a certain amount of time, 6 months according to some sources, some didn't give me one, but he told Sarah he loved her. And she is like, nope, not okay with this. And she pushes away his advantages because he's saying, I love you. And she's saying,
You creepy. Creepy
Yeah.
old man. Thanks,
Now,
but no thanks,
despite-
Daddy. Hate it.
Now, despite her clear, like, he demanded things of her because this was the conditions of staying with him. So then he got demanding. And this is when
What happened
things
to my
turned-
lease agreement? I pay you rent, you let me rent a room. That's how this is how this works. Okay, Mom, I'm really sorry. You were totally right. This guy's fucking crazy. He wants me to call him Daddy and do X. I'm coming back home. Like, I'm
Right.
done. Heroin is
so-
not for me.
I think it was also a matter of around this
Ew.
time he continued to push these ideas, as an abusive relationship does, that you're not wanted elsewhere. This is the reason why your parents don't want you. This is, and isolating her and telling her no one's gonna take you back. You honestly think your mom? So she started to feel like this was her only option.
I fucking hate him. I hate him. I hate him. I hate
And to
him.
manipulate a teenager, like, I'm sorry.
You know what she's been through.
Ex-
What a horrible
you know
fucking
she's been
human. Is this
through-
guy still alive? I hope he's dead. Sorry.
We'll get to that. But to manipulate someone, you're right. All the stuff she's been through, knowing that she was traumatized with a divorce and all of those crazy things, for him to isolate her more is. So then he started to keep track of everything he paid for her. So if there was something he paid for, and he tacked it on as a, you owe me, because this is like, you owe me for this, you owe me for this, you owe me for this. Now she's already was paying rent and buying her own food, but then all of a sudden he started buying her things. In particular, he pressured her to get a nose job because she's not pretty enough. He would constantly berate her about not being pretty enough, not being curvy enough. So she did give in to the nose job, and he added that to the bill. You owe me for this. You owe me.
Oh, I'm getting, I'm getting Playboy vibes right now.
Right?
Like
Yeah,
that's
what
really
I-
what I'm getting. Like all the bunnies, like what they want, like especially the ones who like
Mm-hmm.
lived in the house. Like that's all that's
Yeah.
coming into my head now. Like this guy must have idolized Hugh Hefner in some way, shape, or form. He watched one too many
Honestly-
episodes of The Girls Next Door. Like
Honestly, I believe you're right.
I'm not.
So
happy.
So the nose job added $6,000 more to what she owed. And then he continued to demean her, being like, you're not curvy enough, you're flat chested. So he went and pressured her to get a breast implants. Now, the doctor said she wasn't old enough to do that.
Yeah.
So Hal went with butt implants instead. Now, I don't know if he went to the same doctor for this, but as a doctor, if I'm like, you're trying to take your daughter to get breast implants, I'm telling you no. And then you're like, just put her down for this instead. I still don't think I would be comfortable doing the surgery, but
If she's not old enough for breast implants, why is she old enough? Like
how is she old enough for
how
butt
old is she
implants?
again?
I agree.
17 at this point? 18?
She's 18. I guess that there's
I mean, first off, why aren't you old enough for breast implants? By then, you're kind of
Yeah.
developed. Like, you're not going up really in cup size unless, like, you're gaining weight. So give the poor girl
Right.
a cheeseburger and stop being an asshole.
Agreed. But she did the butt implants. Sarah
Ew.
said she was completely against it, but he basically gave her no choice. Like, she felt like she had no choice. So she did this, adding more to her bill that she owed him. Continued to isolate her and make her feel like this is the reason why, nobody cares about you. This is the reason why you had the issues you had, because you're not pretty enough, all of this. So trying to make her feel completely alone
I
and
hate him
worthless.
so much.
Hal also told Sarah, okay, you have this debt. Now, in order to pay, until you pay it off, you have to sleep with me.
Okay, wait. I have more questions. Hold on. I'm so sorry. This is gonna come off really prostitute-y or sexual
No.
worker type thing. Sorry,
He's not
prostitution's
paying
a
her.
horrible way. No, I understand. But her having sex with him, does that knock off $100 here and $100 there?
No. It's just part of now their deal. So until she pays her complete bill, that's a stipulation.
Everything. No,
Yeah.
no, I owe
No,
you
it's
money.
not.
I owe you money. I don't owe you sexual favors. No, fuck off. No.
Right.
What are you going to do? Call a
And-
cop and tell them how you forced me to have plastic surgery and now I owe you money, and because I don't owe you money, I won't have sex with you. You have a problem? Kick
Right.
me out. Kick me the fuck out.
All this time, Hal would brag to his family and friends about how amazing it was to have an 18-year-old living with him. Because now it went from she's my stepdaughter to now it's like he's kind of insinuating there's stuff going on and that she's so young. But as a family member too, it's just not it's never okay, but this is absolutely fucking what? It's just red flag central.
I'm so nauseous.
You're living with an
right now.
18-year. Ugh.
I'm so nauseous.
He started to take her paychecks even at one point and said, I'm going to sue you if you leave, and I'm going to wreck your credit so bad that you can't get a house, you can't get a car, you can't get
my credit. Wreck
Right.
my credit. Go the fuck ahead.
I agree.
Go ahead.
And so she felt like she really at this point had nothing. So she doesn't have her paychecks because anytime she gets them, she gives what she owes basically to him. Meanwhile, she still has this outstanding loan that has to pay back. And on top of that, now he's made another stipulation where, well, until you pay it back, you still have to you have to have sex with me and sleep with me, which is disgusting and I hate. Sarah said she would stay drunk and high just to complete what he wanted wanted her to complete. So
I get it.
because even if she resisted and said no, he would still find a way. So to her, she said he would still hold my arms up. He would still force himself on me. So I literally was like, okay, but just would stay completely just intoxicated the whole time, which I
get it.
I can understand that. And it was estimated she was taken advantage of 2 to 3 times a week for 10 months total that she was there. That's a lot. That's a lot of trauma that you're spending.
Honey.
And the entire time he is telling her, you have nowhere to go. It's only about I'm the only one who's going to take you in and you have to rely on me. Was Sarah a well girl at this time? No, but obviously you can't really blame her. It was said that there were a few times that and this was kind of weird to me, but I guess I understand as she's the buildup. She'd go to the pet store, buy rabbits, and then she would kill and eat them as a self-survivor thing, but also as a way of I guess killing something and seeing how, I don't know. So she's not well. It's not like she's 100% just
She needs control over
weird.
something, unfortunately.
And maybe that was it. I don't a couple people
she's
were
so much
obviously,
anger. Ugh.
So
Oh, the bunnies. I don't like that. It's fatal attraction. There's too many
it's
there's
not
too many
yeah.
Hollywood things happening for me right now. I don't like it.
So July 17, 2014, Hal hadn't shown up to work.
Oops.
And nobody really
Cared?
kind of heard from him. So well, no, they heard from him. They're like, well, the boss is usually here. So okay. So they got a welfare check and they said, just check by his house because, whatever. Okay. The police found Hal and did they find him? So they found him dead.
Thank God.
in his home.
Sorry.
His limbs were zip tied. His throat was slit almost to the bone.
Oh.
And written on the walls when they walked in his blood, was the word freedom.
Oh, honey.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, this is not a Lifetime movie, like, at all. This is like an M. Night Shyamalan one. This is not Lifetime.
Yeah, this is not.
Freedom. That poor girl. Like, I know I should be like, ew, you like, you can't.
No,
oh, but like at the
but
same.
knowing like
oh,
what led up to it, you're like,
oh, girl.
Now-
oh, girl. Okay.
now his car was gone, and all the police knew, and all the people that worked for him knew, was that he was living with a roommate. So they're like, oh, she's missing now. So should we consider this a missing person? We're not really sure what's going on. So they did some toxicology reports on his body. They found sleeping pills in his system. Sarah was tracked down because after a while, they did find Hal's car and they did find her with it. She was at Everglades National Park in Florida in
Cute.
his vehicle. Yeah.
She made it pretty far. Kansas to Florida is not short.
Right. In the vehicle were firearms, knives, marijuana, and the police kind of were saying, hey, tell us what happened here. And she was really just being an 18-year-old, was like, she said, I wanted to know what it felt like to kill somebody. And that all didn't really bode well for her because.
Yeah, no. Well, I
So
mean, he
here's
had already,
what-
like, groomed her to think, like, nobody's going to give
Yeah.
a shit about you
one's
anyway,
gonna
so
give
what
a
does
shit.
it matter?
So when the cops too were like, tell us what, it kind of was another way of someone wanting to help.
Yeah.
So here's how the scene went down. July 14th, Hal had texted Sarah early and he apologized for basically saying, I want to sleep with you all the time and I'm sorry. Okay. But by 5:15, he texted her saying, put beer in the fridge. And Sarah knew that if alcohol was involved, she was
Getting raped.
there was something not good happening. So he did return home. She put sleeping pills in his beer so that he would pass out. Once he did, she zip tied his ankles, wrists, and cut his throat. So it's kind of suggested that he wasn't even conscious for this. It was just
Rats.
he fell asleep and it just, there it is. Then she wrote on the wall, freedom. And then when they asked, why did you write that? She's like, because that's what I felt. I hadn't felt something like, and that's why you're like, oh, God.
Woof. Yeah.
Sarah was arrested and she was evaluated psychologically by Marilyn Hutchinson. Marilyn spent 17 and a half hours evaluating Sarah and said she was she was suffering from major depression, PTSD, substance abuse, and DID, or multiple personalities.
Ooh.
In fact, it was suggested that Sarah had 4 personalities. One was Vanessa, who was very vulnerable and anxious and scared. Alyssa was a fighter, very strong, angry, and kind of just like, I'm going to take no shit. Mila, who was just very agreeable and feminine. And then there was No Name. And No Name was the one who housed all of the trauma. So the thought process as she was being evaluated was that all of the personalities came together because they were like, we need to do something, because if we don't, Vanessa is going to try to take her own life again. We know that multiple personality disorder is absolutely a thing. However, sometimes it's very difficult to stand up in court and it's very difficult to prove because people can fake it and have faked it. So it's just a matter of like, did she have, who knows if this is,
It wasn't
if she had all
me.
of the,
It was Patricia.
it's Patricia.
It was Patricia.
So according to Marilyn, Hal's weekly demands for sex was accompanied by threats, degradation or
Degradation.
Like a battered woman, Sarah was demeaned, controlled, and over time felt worse and worse. So it's kind of just like eventually something's gonna happen. During the trial, and this is where kind of it's fucked. Sarah's attorney convinced her they'd win. He said,
Oh.
we're not gonna accept a plea. We're not going to accept a plea. We're just going to go with it because we're going to go with your mental health.
But that's not a free pass. That's not a free pass. She needs help.
They're focusing on the mental health, but the abuse that Hal had put her through and all that was not taken into consideration during the trial. The prosecutor said, we don't think that should be brought up. And the defense attorney went, okay.
What is wrong with this man? Who is this? Did he get disbarred?
Yeah.
Like, that should be a mistrial. She's not being represented properly.
No, she wasn't. So
this poor girl is just getting all the hard knocks.
And I guess what the prosecution and even the defense, whatever they were thinking at the time, was it's clearly not self-defense because she tied him up and it's not like he came at her, and you can't prove that the sex was not consensual. So they're like, we're not even going to put in all the abusive behavior that he went through with her. We're just going to bank on the fact that people are going to see how mentally she's not okay, and that'll work. Well, it didn't. It didn't work.
Shit.
So
how about that?
Her attorneys later, because of course, like later on stuff happened, they believed her trial defense attorney didn't even seem to care about her or anything. She told her story honestly to the cops about everything because she was naive and thought they want to help me and not they're going to put me in jail for, whatever. So this is also the reason why maybe he didn't fight so hard. So the jury, who didn't know about what was going on in Hal's house, did not know about any of that. All they knew was, here's the murder scene. She took his car and whatever. They sentenced her to first-degree murder and 50 years to life.
I mean, yeah. If you don't know the backstory, it looks like a horrendous crime happened here.
Now, first degree is you have intent and it's premeditated. And clearly, if you just look at this straight from it, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So once she was sentenced, Sarah got requested a new attorney because an appeal on the grounds that she wasn't, as you said, she wasn't being effective use of counsel.
Yep.
Because her abuse should have been taken into account. Now, looking into it more, because of course they did.
Where's Zellner? Zellner. That's who we need. Zellner. What the fuck's her name? Something Zellner. She did the Making a Murderer. Like part 2.
Oh, yeah,
we need
yeah.
her. She needs to come talk to us. Zellner. That's who we needed. The hero we all needed.
So they looked more into Hal, and they found he had downloaded hundreds of videos of violent porn. He visited X-rated websites that featured children, teens, and bestiality. And 20 times he visited sites that featured men fondling and having sex with women who were unconscious, whether they were just sleeping, whether they knocked them out, whatever. Okay. So also brought in another woman said that Hal had attempted to groom her twin 16-year-old girls because he offered them gifts. Mom was very uncomfortable with it, blocked his number from their phones, but then he just gave them new phones to communicate with him. He even said, if you're having trouble at home, you can always move in with me. Now, Mom didn't go on the record of this is me because she wanted to keep anonymity towards this, but knowing that he had all of this shit on his computer, knowing that he did this at the same time, basically, as Sarah. So, 2021, Kansas District Attorney Suzanne Valdez brought this evidence along with other experts that had looked into Sarah, and they, came up with all of this. And even in Sarah's words, they were looking for kind of like an appeal or a deal or some kind. There's also a clemency application that Sarah filled out, and it goes through a whole bunch of her saying she's explaining what she wants to do when she gets out,
Yep.
what her plan is after prison, how she mended her relationship with her parents, and how she now has this new realization of her relationship with God. And she talks about having remorse. Quote, I didn't know how to handle the feelings of fear, shame, and confusion that I believed in my very core. I have dedicated every day since my incarceration to better myself. I will continue to make sure that everything that happened wasn't for nothing. So, Douglas County District Attorney made a deal with the judge to cut Sarah's sentence in half. So 25 years she can be eligible for parole. It's still 25 to life. In exchange for that, she gives up the right for future appeals. So,
But have we had one appeal yet?
she appealed.
Yeah. So have we
But-
had the trial for the appeal?
They denied it, and they're kind of like, well, how about we take this deal instead? So they cut her time when she could possibly be out on parole. So the earliest she could be out on parole was 50 years. They cut
Yeah.
it to 25. And now they're like, okay, well, because we did that for you, you give up any
How
Any
did she
future
not
options
get
or-
the appeal though? How was that denied?
that's honestly
How is
what's
that
very
possible
confusing.
that it's denied? It's very clear that her counsel did not.
Was not representing her correctly.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really know what the deal was with that, but this particular district attorney who took the deal was like, this is the only way to come up with a better outcome. And everyone's
No.
like,
No.
because
No.
she should have received a new trial.
Yeah, no.
That's
like
what,
I'm not saying
so-
what she did is right, like in any way, shape, or form. She
No.
definitely needs to see time of some sort. Sorry, somebody's running and Riggs needs to cheer them on. But like, I mean, she shouldn't be rotting away in prison. I really think this girl needs a medical
I
facility.
agree.
Like, she definitely did something terrible. I think she was honestly pushed to that point. She wasn't represented properly, and she needs help.
agree.
She doesn't need to rot in prison for 25 years for something that,
I agree.
granted, she should never have done, and it shouldn't have happened, even though he was a piece of shit.
But she shouldn't have been in that situation either.
yeah.
As of now, her supporters and her mom is stepping forward and being like, "This isn't fair." Like, no, you think that okay, justice. This was nice for you guys to say, "Oh yeah, we got a great deal going because we cut her, her sentence in half." That's great, but she needs a new trial because there's so many aspects that weren't taken into account.
Yeah.
As of now, the earliest she can be released is 2039. So that deal still sits on the table because I don't know how you go about. Now she can't appeal because that was part of the deal. Like, you cut it in half. So I don't know if there's a way. They're trying to convince the governor of Kansas, like, you need to
Like
look
a
at
pardon,
this because
yeah.
like this, yeah, like something, whether it's a new trial, whatever, you need to look at this because there's all these, and you found out all of this other garbage stuff in there. So Hal's family, as of now, doesn't deny his behavior, but they do recall his positive nature. Some have mixed feelings about this, saying she's absolutely where she needs to be because of the nature of the crime. Others, her supporters, are saying it's battered woman syndrome.
Yeah.
It's basically a matter of she was pushed because she continued to be isolated. So as of now, she still sits in jail, and I think she's going to be there until at least 2039. But she is getting rehabilitated. So she is working with like service dogs, and she's, teaching other people certain things. She's reading, she's doing all of these great things to better herself because she's proving that I did something wrong. I have to have, as you said, I have to have some kind of consequence. However,
I know I say that all the time, like, I love how you tell the cases and like explain them and like so we all get it, but at the same time, like,
it's a terrible
it's
story.
a terrible
It's not a good
story.
It's not a good story.
No, not a good look. Shit. All right, well, let's make it worse with the Villisca Axe Murders Part 2.
I am so excited for part 2.
Okay, so we're gonna
Patu.
breeze through this relatively quickly because I really just want to get to the hauntings. So it's super funny. Jen and I saw each other yesterday, and I straight up said, "Yo, doing murder cases is like hard, and I don't really like love it. Like I'd much rather stick to the ghosties and the demons and the cryptids and the the woo woo stuff. Like that just makes my little heart happy because all this research and dealing with how stupid people are like really fucking annoys me." So, but I only have a couple pages to get through of the actual murders, and then we're going to get to the fun part. Yay. So let's do a quick little recap. So the Villisca Axe Murders is such a famous and infamous case that it actually took the Titanic sinking off the front page. You knew I'd get Titanic in here somewhere. Yup. There it is. Well, the Titanic sank in April of 1912, and this happened in June of 1912. Oh, yeah, buddy. So, on the night of June 9th into June 10th, an unnamed human went into the house of the Moore family, killed 8 people, including 2 adults and 6 children, and they were hacked to death while they slept in Villisca, Iowa. So, you're all caught up from last week. Congratulations. Thank you for coming.
Pretty much.
So, we're at the inquest now. So, last week we talked about the murders themselves and the initial investigation and how fucked up everything was and how just nobody knew what they were doing. Chickens without heads, running around like crazy. So we're at the inquest. So this happened June 11th, so the day after. So we did our investigations. The coroner was super pissed. The sheriff did nothing. Blah. Yep. And I also heard this other thing about the sheriff that I probably should have said last week, but I heard about it during this research. And it's that the sheriff dude had the axe. Remember in last week?
And he was
spectators hold the axe. Oh my God, this is the murder weapon. Here, hold it. Let me take a picture. Dumb shit. He actually went out and bought another axe, and the other axe is what they use as evidence. So the actual axe, you can't do that one. But 2, the actual axe, some other guy, now, today, if you go to Villisca, there's the Villisca Axe Murder House. You can go visit and ghost hunt, do all that. But then there's another little I want to say general store or something in town that has a memoriam, whatever you want to call it, to the Villisca Axe Murder, and they have an axe there, and they're like, "Yo, no, this is the murder weapon."
This is it.
So now there's 2 axes running around Villisca, "Oh my God, I killed people, woo!" So weird. So okay. Inquest, this is the day after. There were 14 witnesses who testified, and like I said, I'm going to try and blow through these because shit. So the neighbor Mary Peckham was the first witness called, and we heard her shit. Then there's the Moore's employee. Abner, they're not opening the door. That one, okay? So she went first. Then Ed Selly, the employee who showed up later on, Ross, his name was Ross. He was like, "Yo, bro, don't even bother. Something horrible happened. Nothing's going to come of it. Just stop." So that guy spoke. We already heard his story too last episode. The next witness was the first physician on scene. So his name was Dr. J. Clark Cooper. Let's put some more names in here for you. So Marshall Horton, our buddy with the axe, after he went in, saw everything for the first time or heard what was going on, he stopped in Cooper's office and was like, "Everybody apparently in the Moore house was murdered last night, so we got to go look, so you need to come with me." So he went through the house with the first group of investigators, so the people who were going through and coming out when the coroner first got there. And, quote, this is what he said. So when questioned about the condition of the bodies, Cooper admitted that he did not touch the corpses. The bedding was pretty stiff at the head, and the blood and the brains were on the pillow. He paused. "Had contracted, as it does when killed, it will dry. So that..." It was so gross. "So it was perfect jelly at the time, and blood clots were dry." Cooper estimated that the victims had been dead for at least 5 to 6 hours. So basically, he didn't touch anything. He wasn't the physician who was doing what the coroner did, or the other physician who came on. He's the one saying "Yeah, I went and I saw it and I gave my opinion, and this is kind of what I saw, but I didn't touch anything. I didn't look in depth. I didn't do any of that." He also testified that he smelled nothing unusual or any sort of antiseptic odor in the house, and it seemed the faces of the victims had been covered after they were murdered because of the way the blood had dried. "I saw no clothes sticking into any of the wounds in my superficial examinations. Neither did I see the clothing had any holes in it. I mean, any of the pillows or sheets Nothing had a hole in it. So this guy was like dead on balls accurate, hitting their fucking faces. Ugh, I hate it. Next was Jessie Moore's testimony. So that's Ross's wife. We kind of heard her story, you know. Mary called, oh my God, da da da. And then she had to like go get her husband. Okay, fifth was Dr. F.S. Williams. So he was the second physician and the first to actually examine the bodies. So Ed Selly was going into town to help, remember, because we had to do the daisy tree and we had to call everybody and Mary's trying to get people there.
Yes.
So Ed was like, dude, I'm going to go to town. I'll get there faster than the phone call thing. So he did, and he ran into town and he stopped at, yeah, of course he did. Well, no, he couldn't go work on the horses, so I might as well go run to town. So he stopped Williams on the street. He's like, he saw Williams on the street. He was like, yo, dude, shit's popping off at the Moore house. You got to come. Like, we need help. So this is the doctor. He arrived when the first group was exiting the house, and he met them on the porch. He was then escorted through the house with Horton and described much of what he saw. And one quote that stood out to me was, in the bedroom to the south, at the left hand, east bedroom, was a cot and another bed standing there with a little boy in it. So this is where the 3 kids were. Sorry, I'm hiccuping. He had been sleeping on his stomach, and top of his head was all beaten in. There was a gauze undershirt on top of his head soaked up with blood. I lifted it off to see which one it is. It was Paul Moore. Oh, baby. Okay, so the 6th witness was this dude, Ed Landers, and he was visiting his mom for the summer in Villisca. He didn't have much to add to everything, except that he thought he heard what was an impressive bird call by a boy in the middle of the fucking night. He also said the bird call seemed to be at steady intervals, and other than that, he had heard nothing. Great
Could
testimony.
It have just been a bird?
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you weighed in. Thank you.
That you wait.
I'm so glad that you did this. I thought I heard a bird, and I was very impressed with how steadily the impression of the bird was. Like, I just needed you to know. It was probably like a mockingjay. Like, I think he was trying to do a mockingjay. It was really good. Like, that's all he fucking put in there.
That's all he... Thanks.
So, thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Stupid. Thank you. Next was Marshall Horton, the man, the myth, the legend.
Oh.
So, like I said, everything I read about this guy, he's like a fucking pick-me-up. Like, oh my God, I was there almost first. Look at the murder weapon. Hold my beer.
Do you wanna
like,
touch
wait.
it?
Oh my God. He made sure to tell everyone multiple times that all the Moores had been murdered in every bed. There was a murdered Moore in every bed. That was like his favorite thing to say, like specifically. And he also said that shit to like anybody who would listen. So the second they were like, yeah, we need people to talk. Oh, ooh, I got you. Boo, I'm there. Here we go. So then, okay, so 7th, 8th, 10th, 11th, and 14th witnesses who spoke were all of JB's brothers. They were all pretty useless. They were all like, yeah, I don't think there was anything. Like, my brother didn't have any enemies. He didn't owe anybody money. His business was great. It's totally cool. That's it. Like, that's really all he said. The last brother, I'm pretty sure it was Ross, did testify that he knew that JB locked the doors. So, like, the front and back door. I mean, again, this is 1912. People weren't locking their doors. People weren't locking their windows. Like, you know, you could fucking come in and out of anybody's house. They didn't care. But Ross said no. JB made sure to lock the house down. Like, everything was secure when he went to bed. He'd lock everything from the inside, and that was it. So that was the big fun thing that they learned from all of the brothers. And then the 12th and 13th witnesses were Blanche and Joseph Stillinger. So Blanche was the oldest sibling, so Ina and Lena's older sister. And she's the one who took the call at 6 p.m. from JB. When JB called and was like, hey, you know, we're going to the church thing. It's going to be weird. I don't really feel comfortable letting the girls walk home. You know, I would like to have them stay here for the night, and I'll make sure they get home before school or they get to school, whatever it was. So, Blanche testified that conversation had happened, and then Joseph got on the phone, and then Joseph and JB spoke. So Joseph is the father of the Stillinger family. Him and JB talked for a little bit, and he was like, yeah, you know what, that sounds fine. We'll take care of it. No big deal. Then the coroner asked if he had called, so if Mr. Stillinger had called the Moore house on Sunday morning. So remember Saturday into Sunday. He testified, "My wife did, yes," he answered. When questioned about the times of the call, Sillinger replied, "I remember she phoned about 3 different times trying to get someone in the house. I did not ask her about the particular time, but she expected the children back just before school time." Finally, Charles Moore... Oh, wait. Why did I talk about this? Oh, Charles Moore is the one who said that everything was locked. I forgot to take that out. Cool. So there we go. That was the inquest. We really didn't learn anything except somebody was good at making bird calls. The brothers didn't know anybody who had...
And he locked his door.
Done it, didn't know anything bad. He locked his doors. And the Stillingers were like, yeah, we definitely talked to them the night of the murders. This is what we got. And now our kids are dead.
Right.
All right. Suspects. So, again, this is an unsolved murder, which fucking crazy. So, the first thought is a hired gun. All right? So, this would be... So, JB started his own business after he worked for this guy named Frank Jones. And Jones was super not happy about it. He was fucking pissed. So, JB started his own business selling... What are the tractors?
John Deere
tractors. Thank you. There we go. So he worked for Frank Jones. Frank Jones had a grain, farm type thing. And he had a small account with John Deere. But JB was like, fuck this shit. I'm going to make lots of money. I'm just going to sell John Deere. I'm going to work with John Deere directly. And this is what's going to happen. And Jones was pissed. So there was also a rumor that JB had an affair with Jones's daughter-in-law. So that, kind of fueled the flame of, we hate JB. We hate JB Moore. What a dick. So at this point, Detective Wilkinson kind of jumps in, and he's the one really doing the investigation. So he goes right up to Jones and Jones's son, Albert, and is like, yeah, did you hire somebody to kill the Moore family? And they were like, no. Why would we ever do such a thing? What would even make you think that? He goes, I don't know. We kind of took business from you. Apparently you fucked your daughter-in-law, these are things. And they both denied it. They were like, no, absolutely not.
Of course, because that's what you do.
I mean, yeah.
I didn't do it.
But Wilkinson still suspected that William Blackie Mansfield was the killer of this crime. And he kind of pulls together all these other axe murders that happened. The hired gun that Wilkinson thinks is, the person, his name is William Blackie Mansfield. And Wilkinson, the detective, is like, all right, I can kind of pin a couple things on him because there were multiple axe murders prior to and after the Villisca axe murder that all had the same sort of MO. Yeah. And a lot of people, even to this day, we'll touch on it a little bit later, but a lot of people are like, no, this was a serial killer going down the railroad line and just jumping off in the Midwest. This was a main point of contention. So 4 days before the Villisca massacre, there was an axe murder in Paola, Kansas. They had a lot of similarities. So Wilkinson started pinning that one, the Villisca murder. Then there was a murder in Aurora, Colorado. And yeah, those 3. And he's like, yeah, Blackie Mansfield had to have done these in some way, shape, or form. Okay. So he was finally arrested as a potential hitman in 1916. And they tried to pin all of these on him. It didn't really work. It didn't really work out. So then later on in life, Wilkinson actually believed that Mansfield was responsible for the axe murders of his own wife, his infant child, his mother, and father-in-law in Blue Island, Illinois, July 5th of 1914. So Wilkinson's whole family had been hacked to death by an axe murderer in Illinois in 1914. Christ. And so throw that in the middle of all of this other shit. And because of all the similarities, he's like, we saw this, this, and this. He did it. This is my guy. And, people are like, okay, we get it. But, really? Is this really a thing?
Right.
So, yeah. In each of the murders, everyone was hacked to death with the blunt end of the axe. The mirrors and bodies were covered with cloth. And notably, a lamp with the chimney off was left at each scene. Wilkinson was convinced. Oh, Wilkinson had convinced a grand jury to open a full investigation. So this is in 1916 when Blackie was arrested.
Right.
Blackie was arrested and brought to Montgomery County from Kansas City. But payroll records provided a rock-solid alibi that placed Mansfield in Illinois at the time of both the Paola, Kansas, and Villisca, the Iowa murders. So he was released for lack of evidence. And then Mansfield, so Blackie Mansfield, the hitman, or the alleged hitman, sued Wilkinson and won for defamation. He was awarded $2,225, which would be equal to $65,000 now.
Wow. That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. So then there's Reverend George Jacqueline Kelly. A reverend? A reverend, yeah. So he was a traveling reverend. He came from London. Him and his wife. He settled in Macedonia, Iowa in 1912. He attended the Children's Day program on June 9th with the family. He was definitely in Villisca the night of the murders. And he bounced super early. We're talking 2, 3, 4 in the morning, which would be about the time where, whomever left the building. This made him a...
Reverends are supposed to be close to Jesus.
So are priests. How does that work out for us?
All right.
Okay. So he came back to the scene later on June 10th, when the spectacle was happening. And he was trying to tell people that he was from Scotland Yard. So somebody from Villisca called over to London and he magically showed up and was there to help with the investigation. He also sent a letter to the investigators confessing to the murder. This man confessed and was like, yep, I fucking did it. The next week, he sent some of his bloody shirts to the cleaners. To the drugstore in town to be cleaned. Yeah, this guy's an idiot. But as they were investigating, Kelly was diagnosed with schizophrenia. He had a passion for peeping through windows. He was also known as a firebug, as he also confessed to multiple arson crimes.
Arson.
Yep. But at first, even with the confession, investigators were like, no, this can't be him. He's 5'2". He's 120, soaking wet. There's no fucking way he would have the ability, the strength, the anything. Plus, he's a reverend. There's no way a reverend's killing people. Yeah. There's no fucking way. About 5 years later, he was arrested, finally, for one of the 8 murders. One of them. Only one of those people was murdered by this guy. Some other person must have come in and killed the other 7 in the exact same fucking way. I'm just saying, this is what happened. He was proven in court that his confession that he wrote to the investigators was coerced. There was very little evidence, to tie him to it in any other way. There was a hung jury, so that was called a mistrial, and he got out. Then there's Henry Lee Moore. This guy has no relation to the family that died. He's just kind of there. He grew up troubled in Missouri. He'd have a habit of visiting morgues to look at the dead bodies. I mean, I kind of get it. In 1912, what else were you doing?
I guess.
I mean, literally in the early 1900s in New York, they would put the dead bodies out. So you could be yo, do you know this guy? They did it a lot in the West too, at Tombstone and, that was a big thing.
So.
Okay.
All right.
So he also kept a scrapbook of famous murder cases, and I obviously can't speak to that because look at us. I mean, look at what we do for our hobby.
Yeah, but I wouldn't keep a scrapbook of it. I'm not gonna
Jennifer, you bought me a book of murderers on death row's last meals.
It's not a scrapbook of their crimes.
All right, I'm done with this. So he had run-ins with the law and was convicted of forgery in 1910. He served time in the Kansas State Prison and was released in May of 1911. So Henry is suspected of committing multiple axe murders prior to Villisca. So there's the one that happened in Colorado Springs in 1911. Mm-hmm. So that's the same month that he got a job working on the railroad. October of 1911. So this is a family was killed in Monmouth, Illinois. Just a week later, 5 members of a family in Ellsworth, Kansas were murdered as they slept. Just a week before Villisca, a man and his wife were killed in Paola, Kansas. And all of these crimes were extremely similar. Like I said before, they were killed with the blunt end of the axe. There was coverings over the faces and the windows and the mirrors, and each of them had the like hurricane lamp with the chimney off, and it was very, very low.
Right.
So this is how Henry gets caught, but it's something a little bit different. So Henry's in love with this 16-year-old girl named Queenie Nichols, and she rejected his marriage proposal because he didn't have his own home. She's like, dude, how are you going to take care of me and a family if you don't even have your own place? Like, I get it, you're working, but like, I have standards. Good for Queenie. I'm not mad at her, you know? So he assures her that he is going to be getting his mother's home all to himself. She doesn't have to worry about it. It's okay. So on the night of December 17th, 1917, he goes to his mom's home and beats her with a rusty coal axe. Then he goes upstairs and beats his 82-year-old grandmother while she's asleep.
Jesus Christ, bro.
Yeah. Then he goes to a hotel or a motel, whatever you want to call it, and he tries to clean up. He didn't really do anything but also fuck up the hotel room, but okay. So then he goes back to his mother's house in the morning to discover the bodies. And the cops show up and they're like, wow, this is really terrible. You know, how did you survive? Because he lived with his mom. Like, when he was in the area, he stayed at his mom's house. And they're like, how come they, like, you didn't hear anything? You didn't see? Oh, well, I was staying at a motel. Suspect number one. This is it. You are our main title suspect. They go to the hotel. They see how great he did hiding the evidence. And they're like, yo, bro, you suck at this. So he's convicted of murder in March of 1918. He's sentenced to life. And although his crimes seem to fit the profile, they still couldn't charge him with all of these other cases that I was talking about.
Right.
Yeah. So then there's the theory of the transient or vagabond, like running around the train line. This also goes with the serial killer I was just talking before. Like, you know, he's just using the railroad line. You know, he hops on and off and is just trying to kill everything and anything in sight. So this guy's name, one of the main suspects, is Andy Sawyer. Again, a major suspect, but there's no real evidence to tie him to any of these murders. Like, so his name came up in grand jury testimonies. And one witness came forward, and he said at 6 a.m. on July 10th, Andy approached his railroad crew. Sorry, this guy's name is Dyer, the guy who's talking. You know, this guy, Andy Sawyer, came up to my crew on the railroad and was like, yo, I need a job. And Dyer's like, dude, yeah, I need hands. Let's go. So Andy showed up. He was clean shaven and wearing a brown suit. However, his shoes were muddy, and the legs of the pants were wet up to the knees. So he'd been doing some running. He asked for a job, he got the job, and when the crew hit the next stop, like the next day, Andy bought a newspaper and it had the murder on the front page, and he was super fucking interested. He's like, yo guys, did you see this? Did you see this fucking murder? Did you see what happened here? That night, Andy slept with an axe. Like, you know, some sleep with a teddy bear or like a body pillow. Andy here cuddles his axe. Super cute. Made everybody very uncomfortable. The next day, he, like, you know, started talking incessantly about the murders, whether or not anyone had heard, you know, if anybody had been arrested, anybody had been convicted, you know, did they find the murderer? Do they know how he escaped? Do they know what happened?
Bro,
like,
you know as much as we do.
Exactly. And then Andy said something to Dyer, like, after a few days of working with the crew, when they left, after they left Villisca. And he said that he was in Villisca the night of the murders and wanted to get away because he thought he could be considered a suspect.
Why?
I don't know. He also said something about, did I put it in here? He also said something about he would, if they had followed the murderer's footprints through the yard and made it to like 2 blocks away, because there was a stump that he used to clean off his boots, and then he kept, like, the murderer could have, that's how he said it. He goes, I wonder if, like, you know, maybe the murderer left some footprints in the yard, and he would have seen, like, a couple of, like, blocks away, there was, like, this tree stump, and then, like, you know, maybe the murderer tried to knock some of the mud off of his boots from running in the woods on this tree stump, and then, you know, it was really close to the railroad, so I bet he just jumped on one of the trains. And as they were coming back into
and
Villisca,
they're like, "Is this you? Is this you?"
well, as they were coming back into
you?
Villisca, Dyer saw like this trunk of a tree that was like covered in mud and was like, "Yo, bro." So Dyer, calls the sheriff and turns Andy in and is like, "This guy's creeping me the fuck out." So this is June 18th of 1912. And this is a quote from the Villisca Axe Murder House website. So prior to the sheriff arriving, Dyer testified that he walked up behind Sawyer and he was rubbing his head with both hands and all of a sudden jumped up and said to himself, "I will cut your goddamn heads off." At the same time, he made striking motions with an axe and began hitting the piles in front of him. So, and yeah, it's just...
It just looks ridiculous.
So crazy. But Andy was dismissed as a suspect when it was proven he had been arrested for vagrancy in Acello, Iowa on the night of the murders. So he fucking lied about all of it. Like, the guy probably just had, like, a pick-me-a complex and, like, just wanted to be included.
Oh, yeah. Like he wanted to, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then finally there's Joe Ricks, and he was detained in Monmouth, Illinois. He got off the train in Monmouth, Illinois with blood on his shoes. And an account from some woman named Faye Van Gilder. Gilder? Yeah. So she told the police, but she didn't want to testify at the inquiry. And she really didn't want to, like, get involved with the trial. She basically said, "Yeah, this guy, I saw him get off the train. He had blood all over him, like, on his, like, shoes and his pants and his clothes. And he freaked me out, so I called the cops."
Okay.
So fun. So that really didn't do anything. And then, yeah. So those are all of our suspects. I mean, you can also throw in, like, just a serial killer who isn't any of these humans. You know.
Who just happened to be, yeah.
Who just happened to be following the train line, would jump off and kill a whole bunch of people, jump back on, and go.
It's just such a weird thing that, like, they would choose this particular house, and if it was a hit, why would you kill all the kids too? Like, that would be my, like,
yeah,
you know,
so
it's just so weird.
After you go through all the suspects, I feel I have more questions than answers.
Yeah,
in my opinion, like, none of these really fit the bill, no matter what. I mean, maybe the guy who hacked together his mom and his grandmother, but
I mean, because he had it kind of in him anyway.
Yeah,
but he does have an alibi. But, like, I don't know. It's so weird that it would be this family, like, this particular.
Where did this come from?
House, this particular, like, the kids too. Like, it's just so strange.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
right.
random.
Now I have more questions.
Exactly. Even about these humans, like, I just have more questions about these humans, like. Where did the blood come from on his shoes? What did he say? Like, what did Joe Ricks say when they were like, "Why do you have blood on your shoes?" Like, I don't get it. Like, whatever. Anyway, so now we're gonna get to my favorite part, the hauntings. Yay, we're finally here because researching murder is hard. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Okay, so since the actual axe murder, this house is still standing. You can actually go stay there. It's kind of used as obviously just a tour, like you can go on a tour during the day, but it's used kind of as a ghost lab right now because a lot of the players are known, and it's a place where paranormal investigators, new, old, whatever, they can try new things, they can hone their skills, because we kind of know who's there in a sense. I mean, there's one entity that people are like, I don't like you, but it could be the murderer. So it hasn't been proven or disproven if it's the murderer or not. But again, you know, there's a lot going on. Let's just get into it. So a lot of people have been in this house. It's been passed over, like, change of hands quite a few times. People have lived here as, like, their family home, and now it's opened as a bed and breakfast.
They always do that. It's always a bed and breakfast.
I mean, I would stay there. I mean, it's on my list now. Road trip. Anyway.
I know.
Okay, so people have reported fluctuations in temperature, mainly cold spots, feelings of concentrated dread, profound sadness, or inexplicable rage. You can hear disembodied footsteps, conversations, both adults and children, and, you know, adults speaking with children, like a little bit of both, and kids laughing. People have felt poking, pushing, and tickling. Apparitions are both considered residual and intelligent. Dark mists have been seen with both the naked eye and on film, both still and video. Orbs, mists, and streaks are found on still and video film. In the cellar, people hear growls and can see shadow people that have also been caught on film. And it's believed the murderer could still be lingering in the attic and is menacing to anyone who goes up there. And he doesn't just stay up there. Like, you know, he'll come down.
He moves.
Like, he'll come hang out with you.
I don't like that.
And all of this stuff can happen to you during the day or at night. So this can happen at any time of the 24-hour period.
Okay.
Yeah, so you could be there just for a tour of the history and, like, you know, you'll see the kids playing under the bed. Mm-hmm. Okay. So the current owners, the Lynns, they opened the house in the 1990s, and this is when they started the tours. It was more just tours than ghosty type stuff, but as people were walking through during the tours, they were having all these experiences. So they're like,
right,
dude, we can do a ghost tour too at night, and that'll be great. And now it's just kind of developed since there. So since this family, the Lynns, have started tours, a strange fog has been witnessed moving from room to room. Ghost hunting researchers have documented spirits with various electronic devices, including the EMF detector, which is the electromagnetic frequency detector, and dozens have documented two-way communications via electronic voice phenomena, so EVPs. And they you can find so much of this on TikTok, on social media, on YouTube. There are hours and hours and hours of people just going there with their like EMF detectors and their ghost box and just sitting there talking. The paranormal puck just spits out words, and it's always like on target words. It's always like axe, children, Ina, Lena, Paul. Like they'll just start rallying off names. Like it's crazy. So it's not just like, you know, words that our friend Zach Bagel Bites is like, oh, could this mean this or this mean that? Like, you know, we're getting to him, but you know, everything's on point. So cool. Children have been observed playing with an unseen individual under the bed. So like kids who are on the tour, they kind of get distracted and they'll start playing with someone who's hiding from them. Specifically in the sewing room where the Stillinger girls passed away. In 2014, one paranormal enthusiast entered the house with a hunting knife. And the caretaker at the time was like, that's not a good idea. Let's not do that. Like, put your hunting knife back in your truck and then go in. And this guy's like, I'm too cool for this shit. I fucking got this. So he goes in and starts provoking the spirits like a dick. Okay? It's reported that he saw a flash of light and then woke up in a hospital. He suffered a self-inflicted wound with his own knife that he didn't remember causing. He later returned to the house and apologized to the spirits for his behavior.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what you get.
Yeah.
Some claim to have made contact with the victims, and others say it's the victims and the murderer. Okay. So many say at 2 a.m. when the train passes, because you know they have a 2 a.m. train, when the whistle blows, it triggers all of the residual events of the murder. So some investigators have reporting fog showing, moving from room to room, and perhaps mimicking the orders of the murders. So, like, they'll see the fog go. So, on the top floor, the kids' room, it's kind of like a train. The kids' room and the parents' room, let me flip those around. The parents' room is here, the kids' room is here. So, to get to the parents' room, you have to walk through the kids' room. So, they'll see the mist come up the stairs in the hallway, go through the kids' room, stop for a minute in the parents' room, and then do its thing, and then start making its way through the kids' room, stay in the kids' room for a while, go back down the stairs, and then it dissipates as it goes into the sewing room. Nothing to freak you out. It's fine. So then our buddies, our friends, my best frenemy, Zachary Bagel Bites. I love him so much. They went there. So they were there on, okay, if you're on HBO Max, it's season 4, episode 12. I've also seen that it was actually season 4, episode 4, or episode 6. I think it kind of just depends on which thing you watch. But this episode is actually phenomenal. They get a lot of fantastic evidence, and this is one of the ones that freaks me out. This is why I wanted to cover the Villisca axe murders, was because of this episode. So, all right. So while they're doing their walkthrough, like the beginning thing before they're investigating, they meet a bunch of paranormal researchers who got very intelligent responses when they investigated. So one of the people they interviewed says every time he walks on the property, he feels pure evil. Another said that he thinks the residual energy on the property is the good. So like the kids, the parents, and the intelligent energy is the bad. At one point, they actually thought it could be demonic activity because during the spirit box session, when they asked the heavy feeling, the black spirit, whatever you want to call it, the not good energy, what are you? He identified himself as Legion. So Legion in the sense of, the Bible and demonic and like, I guess, everyday stuff. Yeah. It's like an army. It's one in many, the army. We are one, many, blah, blah, blah. So it's that sort of idea. And then as this session was going on, the person who was asking the questions was scratched on his back. So he had 3 scratch marks down and then 2 or 3 scratch marks to make an L for Legion in his back. And they show pictures of it, which is creepy as fuck.
No.
So as they're doing this interview, they're in the kids' room upstairs. And Zach and this dude are talking. They're discussing, all the EVPs and stuff. And all of a sudden, the closet door shuts itself. Whew. Yeah. Broad daylight. This is happening. And they're like, okay, cool. So they also interviewed 2 sisters who lived in the house while they were growing up. So I think they were from like the 60s and 70s, like these kids when they were growing up. Their names were Patty and Linda. Patty was severely affected. She did not want to be there. She was like trying to answer questions and just like very curt, very one word, can we hurry this up? I need to leave. I don't want to be here.
Right.
These 2, when they first moved in and they were like trying to unpack and get everything done, they were forced to sleep in the sewing room. And they said their first night in there, they heard little girls' voices crying all night long. Crying and like asking for help and all this stuff. So the next morning they tell their parents, and their parents are like, guys, you're imagining things. You had a bad dream. It's a new house. You're not used to the creaks, like all these things. Then Linda said this is his house, saying the murderer didn't want anybody else in the house. Like, this is the murderer's house now. He doesn't like people here. He doesn't want you here. He doesn't want us here. And the second she said that, she's overcome with such emotion that she needed to sit down. She's like, the room is spinning. I'm going to pass out. Like, I need to sit down. So Zach starts a quick EVP session and immediately got, where is she? So they basically, like, they start an EVP session. And he's like, who's here? What's going on? Like, shit like that. And all you hear is, where is she? And the woman goes, this house keeps calling me back. And Zach's like, do you kind of think that this could be the murderer? And then it cuts to the sister, Patty, who, like, was giving such curt answers. And all of a sudden, she says that she felt like the murderer was still there and trying to carry out his murders by killing her sister, and her brother who lived there when they were kids. And that's why it kept calling them back to the house, because he never got to finish his job. Like, and now this is all up for interpretation. This is what they are saying. Like, this is how they feel. And both sisters recalled a situation where their father was sharpening his knife. So again, this is Iowa, it's completely covered, like, it's completely surrounded by, like, farms, specifically corn farms. So you would have a pocket knife, or you would have some sort of knives with you at all times, because you don't know what you need in a second. They're farmers. And they both said, he was sharpening his knife at the kitchen table, and in his hand, the knife turned around, and he ended up, like, almost cutting his hand off. Like, he had cut his hand deep, and they're like, how he was holding the knife, there was no way it was possible. If you're sharpening the blade, you're holding the bottom part.
Right, you're holding
it. Wouldn't, like, spin around in your hand and you would squeeze it and, oh shit, I cut myself. Like, this thing spun around in his hand and cut him by himself.
I don't
like it.
I don't like it.
They bring in, he's a police officer who, like, is retired. So now this is, like, his hobby is trying to figure out who killed everybody, who the murderer is.
Right.
And he's very much a skeptic. And he's like, I don't believe in this ghost shit. This is not for me. And Zach's like, well, why don't you come on our investigation for a hot second, while we're there. And you can, just see how we investigate, add to it. And then, you can see what we do. Maybe show us some tips from a police standpoint. And, you'll see what evidence we get and how we process it. So the guy's like, yeah, great, cool. I'll show up. So he comes in. And Zach explains, how EVPs work, what they're going to be doing. So basically, they're just strictly doing an EVP session. So they're walking through the house with their little recorder, and they're asking questions and hoping to get answers. And he shows him there's nothing saved on the recorder. If you hear something while we're walking around, you think you heard a noise outside, tag it. Say, if you hear somebody scuffle, Aaron moved his feet. That's the train. We tag things. So he's explaining how to do an EVP session. And the guy's like, yeah, cool, great, I get this. So they go through the whole house, they ask their questions, they do whatever, they unlock and they leave. And they're like, all right, do you mind sitting with Billy, who does all of their sound at the time? And he's like, yeah, sure. So they play back the sound and they're talking and they're asking questions. And at the top of the stairs, now the skeptic guy is holding the recorder. So none of the other guys had it. And the whole time, Zach tagged a couple things, tripped up a stair, Aaron coughing, shit like that. And as the skeptic is saying something to Zach, because the train goes off, you get an EVP. And it says, I killed 6 kids. And it's said just like that, very breathy, I killed 6 kids, like that. And it takes him a couple times to figure out what is said. They have to go through it.
Right.
And the guy's like, nobody said that. And Zach that's an EVP. That is a Class A EVP. That is what this is. And the guy's like, oh, I don't know if I'm a skeptic anymore. He's freaking out.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, and as they're listening to this in the room, they brought the other paranormal investigators in, too. That's how they figured out I killed 6 kids. They all kind of put their heads together and they figured it out. But as they're going through this information, nobody's in the house. But they still have all their X cameras up. Oh, one of the doors that is wide the fuck open slams shut, to the point where it hits the door jamb and kind of opens back up. So whoever's hearing itself going, I killed 6 kids, is pissed that they heard it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Ooh, I don't like it.
Yeah. So those are the big things. There was also at one point, what's his name? Nick was leaving a room and one of the motion activated cameras goes off because, somebody left the room. But as it's getting, so it's all the light spectrum, whatever it is, I forget which one it's called. I'm sorry, pregnant brain. But the light spectrum that they're on, it can see in the dark. It's not UV, I forget. But the IR, there we go. So it's an IR camera and it can see at night and it has the night vision. So how the IR light was hitting and Nick coming out of the room, there's a black mist following Nick. And it's not his shadow.
Oh, no.
That's why I'm bringing up the lighting source. It's not a shadow. Because how the camera's going, his shadow would have been directly behind him in the picture, not from the right. And you see this black mist following Nick out. So those are the big, huge things that happen. I mean, they got a ton of EVPs. So they got the I killed 6 kids. They're around upstairs. We're going to keep them in the dark because they don't step in heaven yet. You're going to give up blood. Herman's going to get you. It's a gathering place. Then when they're doing the spirit box, they get No, Lena, Wanna Play, Paul, Everyone's Fine, and Andy. Then there's, your residual noises. So the creaking, the footsteps, random bits of laughter.
Right. I don't like it.
Then one of the motion activating cameras goes off and you can hear footsteps, but you can't see anything. And then, the door slams shut. So that's when they were outside. And then there's the apparition of the dark mist caught behind Nick leaving a room. So I can't wait to go to Villisca. I mean, I know Iowa is probably in the middle. I know it's in the middle of nowhere. And I don't really know what else I would do there. I'd have to look into it more, but I definitely would not mind going there. So
yeah,
that is the final ending of the Villisca Axe Murder House in Villisca, Iowa.
I have the creeps. I should have brought my blanket this time.
Sorry. That's how I feel when you're telling murder stories. I'm like, and then this stuff I get so jazzed. Sorry, we're at an hour and 32 minutes. We'll close this off super quick. So
yeah, love you guys.
Love you guys so much. We had so much fun. Thanks for listening. If you want more content, if you're all caught up and want more content, go to our Patreon. You can get there from our website, deathbeforebooze.com, and then just click on Patreon and join. If you want some fun merch, I know Jen put up new merch. Go to, again, deathbeforebooze.com. You can find our merch there. Make sure you rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube now. Make sure you ring that bell. And other than that, thank you so much for joining us. We had so much fun with you today. We'll see you next week. Bye.
See ya. Bye. Stay spooky.